as the NFL draft approaches, we've got some encouraging news regarding Tua's health, who is rehabbing from a hip injury. Here's what Tua's agent, Chris Cabot, had to say. There's a strong belief that he could play this season. If he's in a situation to where he needs to play, he's going to play, and he's going to prepare himself to play well. If it's a scenario where the team wants him to ease in, he's going to continue to prepare to be the best Tua he can be and help that team win games. He's a student of the game. He loves the game, and he's going to work hard, and he's going to be ready for either scenario. On that note, we bring in our Louis Riddick. Louis, great to have you with us. Stephen A., I want to start with you on this one. Who has a higher ceiling? Is it Joe Burrow or is it Tua?
Well, first of all, it's easily Tua, assuming that he's healthy, because Tua's not going to end up with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's just get that out of the way. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to grab Joe Burrow with the #1 overall pick, the Ohio native, and the fact that he's going to be contaminated by that franchise, just like the citizens, the great sports fans in Cincinnati are contaminated by that franchise. That's really where the problem lies. That's number one. Number two, Tua, I remind everybody, in his 2 full seasons as a quarterback, the 15 games he played the previous year, the 9 games that he played last year, he completed 69% of his passes his first full season as a quarterback after coming in at halftime for the national championship game and delivering a national championship over Georgia. I was there. It was one of the greatest moments I've ever experienced in my career. He had that going on. Then he comes back. He completes 69% of his passes, gets back to the national championship game before getting trolloped by Clemson. Then he goes last year, and he's balling out, completes 71% of his passes despite not being healthy all year long before he ultimately got hurt against Mississippi State. This dude is a marksman. He's an accurate passer. He can scramble. He's got a solid arm. He can ball, plain and simple. My reservations about him strictly involve his durability, his health, because in the collegiate level, you obviously were sustaining injuries. What are you going to do on the NFL level where grown men are coming at you with mouths to feed and mortgages to pay and things of that nature? There's an elevated level of urgency and veracity that comes with the NFL game that may not exist in college. I'm concerned about that, but in terms of sheer ability, along with the fact that he ain't going to end up with the Cincinnati Bengals, I'd say Tua's upside is greater than Joe Burrow, and I like Joe Burrow a lot. And I think that he has the potential to be great, but I think he's going to be contaminated by being in Cincinnati, and Tua doesn't have to worry about that.
Man, I just think I see this opposite as most people. You know, most people, because I was making the argument, you have to consider Tua #1 overall. Really, if not for injury, maybe he would be. But that's not because I think his ceiling is higher. It's because were he healthy, I would consider him a safer bet. Because he has, although Dan Orlovsky argued effectively, I think, against this idea, Burrow has a little deeper resume than people realize, but I've been paying closer attention. Like, Tua's been playing in high-profile games, a lot of them quicker than Joe Burrow did, with more success. He's extremely accurate and reminds me and everyone, in a way, of a left-handed Drew Brees. Like, he's accurate consistently. He has that thing about him, the whole thing. So the injury is the reason it's like, wait a minute, red flag, but nothing else really. He doesn't have amazing arm strength. Neither does Joe Burrow. He's not a speed demon. Neither is Joe Burrow, but they're both mobile. That's why I like Tua, in fact. Were it not for injury, I'd say, boy, that's a safe bet. But in terms of the peaks they can hit, look, Burrow's not much older than Tua. And I just saw Burrow hit a peak maybe no one else has ever hit in the history of college football. Like, you could actually make that claim and defend it. Burrow just capped arguably the best season ever with one of the best games ever on the biggest stage you could imagine in a a win where it really required a guy biting down and coming up big. He's extremely accurate like Tua. He's mobile, even if he's not like a burner like Tua. He does a lot of the things Tua does, but a little taller. And I've seen him hit a higher peak already at not that much more of an advanced age. So, yes, I love Tua. I think if it weren't for injury, maybe he would be the #1 pick. But that's because I think his skills, it's like a little safer bet in terms of the peak. I've seen Burrow hit higher peak.
Yeah, I think that Tua's ceiling is higher slightly than Joe Burrow's, but obviously his floor is lower, and that's strictly a function of what is his projected availability and durability going to be, and none of us know that. So you have to say that his floor is lower. Look, I've always thought, as well as many other people have thought, that if all things being equal and Tua was healthy, that he would be the #1 overall pick, because I think he is the purest thrower of the football in this draft. I don't think it's by a long shot, because I think Joe Burrow does a lot of things as far as throwing the football and playing the quarterback position at a high level that are comparable, if not equal to, if not maybe in some instances better than Tua. But I think right here we're splitting hairs, and really the hairs that we're splitting, really what it comes down to is this going to come down to availability. Look, Tua had the benefit of having some tremendous one-of-a-kind weaponry at Alabama. When you think of Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs and Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, and then so did Joe Burrow. Look, Jamar Chase, if he was coming out in this draft right now, Jamar Chase would be the #1 wide receiver taken. Jamar Chase may be taken in the top 5, top 10 picks. He's a one-of-a-kind talent. Justin Jefferson is nothing to sneeze at. He's going to go in the first round too. So when you're comparing these two guys, they both had the benefit of having some very unique one-of-a-kind opportunities, and both of these guys have tremendous skill sets, with maybe, Joe Burrow being one of those guys who some people would prefer because he is more naturally the more mobile, off-schedule playmaker of the two. But Tua can do some things. Look, we've seen it. We've seen Tua do some things that we haven't seen quarterbacks do in a very long time. And I think ultimately his ceiling is just slightly higher.
Well, Mr. Chippendales, I was getting ready to go to that point with you, my man, because when you sit up there and say that Joe Burrows is definitely more mobile, here's the reality of the situation. Wasn't Tua unhealthy throughout most of last year? I mean, we have no indication of what this is. We've seen him be mobile even though he was hobbled. At the same time, he was still moving with the football, using his legs to make things happen just as well as his arm. And if the dude was 100% healthy, are you telling me, Mr. Chippendales, that it would be close? That it would be close between Tua and Joe Burrow, that you wouldn't easily pick Tua as the #1 pick?
It wouldn't be easily, but I would still pick him, yeah.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.